Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. On April 24th at the Monroe County Commissioners meeting, Monroe County Climate Resilience Fellow Victoria Seast gave an update on the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan.
So since we've talked last, the Climate Resilience Plan has come very far. I'm very, very proud of our progress. Just to give a brief overview of what truly is in the plan, in the beginning, we've got a climate change data kind of analysis where we look at the historical, kind of mid-century and current data from temperature, precipitation, growing season days, things like that. It's honestly a really, really in-depth document. It's about 135 pages right now. So the climate change data is pretty brief in the beginning and gets pretty intense down at the bottom in the appendix, which is amazing. Then we move into community trend data where we just kind of look at population growth, if we have any climate refugees. We move into the vulnerability assessment, which is just really details, yes, we're vulnerable in these areas, but this is why. If it's like a highly sensitive area, if it has low adaptive capacity, that's something we really hit on in the assessment. But the main part of it is the strategies to prepare for change. This is where we've drawn from all of the data that we've gathered from the workshops. So we divided all these strategies into 5 different categories: healthy residents, robust natural systems, sustainable business, resilient infrastructure, and community readiness.
Later in the meeting, the commissioners read a proclamation recognizing the importance of Earth Day and the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan in Monroe County.
Whereas Earth Day serves as a reminder of the importance of environmental protection and sustainability efforts worldwide, and climate change presents an immediate and critical threat to the environmental, economic, and social well-being of Monroe County, Indiana, and communities all across the globe. And the manifestations of climate change in Monroe County call for protective measures to identify vulnerabilities and implement strategies and actions to mitigate these vulnerabilities.
And whereas the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan has been specifically developed as a comprehensive strategy to address the adverse effects of climate change on our community, breaking ground as the first county climate resilience plan in the state of Indiana, this groundbreaking climate resilience plan identifies vulnerabilities exacerbated by climate change, including, but not limited to, increased frequency of extreme weather events, impacts on local agriculture, water resource management challenges, and public health concerns. The development and implementation of the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan involve the collective efforts of government officials, environmental experts, community leaders, concerned citizens, underscoring the importance of community engagement and collaboration.
And whereas the establishment of the Climate Resiliency Blue Ribbon Commission exemplifies Monroe County's commitment to innovative leadership, sustainability, and environmental stewardship. The proactive steps outlined in the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan serve not only to protect and preserve our local environment, but also to set a precedent for other counties within Indiana and across the nation to follow. In acknowledging and addressing the urgent need for climate resilience, now therefore, we, the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim our recognition of Earth Day and the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan as vital and necessary steps toward ensuring the long-term resilience and sustainability of our community in the face of climate change, proclaimed this 24th day of April, 2024.
The commissioners will host a public hearing on the jail feasibility study on April 29th. The next regular meeting of the Monroe County Commissioners will be held on May 1st. During the April 23rd meeting of the Bloomington Board of Public Works, the board heard a request for an alley closure and metered parking reservation. The request came from Fox Properties for building facade work. Project engineer for the city, Kendall Noak, walked through the request.
Hello, I am Kendall Kanoki with the engineering department. I am filling in for Kyle Baugh tonight. This is a request for an alley closure in the north-south alley between 4th Street and 3rd Street, adjacent to the 4th Street parking garage. It also includes some metered parking reservations along 4th Street, and this is for some facade work to the building there. It houses Best Taste. And the plan is to have a pedestrian walk around on 4th Street in those parking spaces, and then to restrict vehicular access to the alley adjacent to the building, but to keep the sidewalk that was constructed as part of the 4th Street parking garage open. So there will be full pedestrian access east-west in front of the building along 4th Street and north-south along the east side of the building in the alley. Vehicular access will be restricted to just the south side of the alley, but there will be full access to the businesses in the alley, such as the Blockhouse Bar and the back door. There's also an east-west alley, although it's not clear if a vehicle could actually get through that alley. At the work session, it was requested that the petitioner reach out to the owners of the businesses in that alley, and as of 3:30 today, there had been no successful attempts to get in contact with those business owners. They do not open until later tonight. If there's been any updates on that, I'm not aware of. So, any other questions, I'd be happy to answer about it.
I'll jump in real quick too. Kyle and I have been working with the petitioner, Justin Fox, throughout the day. We're recommending approval of this tonight, knowing that Mr. Fox will continue to work with both the Blockhouse and the back door on their deliveries. Most of those deliveries usually happen off of 4th Street is kind of how we expect they'll probably use the pedestrian walkway quite a bit. If not, they can be accommodated off of 3rd, but Mr. Fox did post his contact information with the businesses and everything else to make sure they're able to coordinate going forward, and we'll continue through Kyle and Mr. Fox to make sure that all that coordination occurs, and yeah, we are recommending approval.
The board approved the request unanimously. Then the board heard a resolution regarding the West 2nd Street Modernization and Safety Improvement Project. Noak introduced the resolution.
So this is a resolution to authorize the purchase of right-of-way for the West 2nd Street Modernization Project. So the project itself is the reconstruction of West 2nd Street between Walker and the Beeline Trail. It's going to add two-way protected bike lane. We're going to replace a couple traffic signals. There's copious amounts of new storm sewer and drainage improvements being made, and new sidewalks, curb ramps, bus stops are being installed. This is a federally funded project, so it's going to go through the federal process for right-of-way and environmental and construction and everything. Schedule-wise, we are scheduled to let through INDOT in February of 2025, and we expect construction to begin middle of 2025 and construction to wrap up in the middle of 2026. So as part of this project, we've determined there are up to 13 parcels that will require the purchase of permanent and temporary right-of-way. A majority of the right-of-way that we are needing for the project is temporary right-of-way, so that'll be returned to the property owners once we do some rework of driveways and grading, that kind of thing. And then there is a small amount of permanent right-of-way that is needed for the project. So if approved by the board, this resolution will confirm the project serves a public purpose and will authorize the right-of-way acquisition.
The board approved the resolution 2-0. During public comment at the Monroe County Community School Corporation Board meeting on April 23rd, parents spoke in opposition to the resolution to merge Templeton and Childs Elementary Schools. Katie Burress spoke, saying that some parents are worried that students with an individualized education plan are not going to be supported during the merger.
One parent says, quote, "The consistency and continuity of care of a K-6 structure is crucial for kids with IEPs." End quote. Yet, The board doesn't acknowledge the data supporting benefits to fewer elementary school transitions and multi-age interactions, which is hypocrisy at its finest, considering the commitment to keeping the multi-age program at Templeton intact. Not sure it's equitable that these benefits can only be experienced by a select few students at one of the two schools. There's a plethora of information you promised to provide over the last few months and have not delivered. So I'm not optimistic the special needs community, especially, will receive guidance anytime soon. I think one of these fellow parents summed it up well when they said, quote, to me, "The board has shown that they don't care about this population, and that's the only way that I can see it."
Later, MCCSC English teacher and member of the Teachers Union, Paul Rhodes, spoke on the amendment to Bylaw 135 and expressed support for reinstating the union's ability to discuss with employers during the decision-making process.
Good evening, President Hennessy, Dr. Oswald, and members of the MCCSC School Board of Trustees. My name is Paul Rhodes. I've been duly elected by the members of MCEA and appointed by the President to read the following statement concerning the bylaw and discussion with MCEA. To begin with, the word of background on what the bylaw addresses. For more than 50 years, teachers' unions in Indiana have had the right under state law to discuss with their employers key issues relating to student learning, school safety, and teacher working conditions. This law ensured the principle that the collective voice of educators, as represented by their union, was at least given a hearing as part of the decision-making process. Last year, in an effort to weaken union voices, a supermajority in the Indiana legislature voted to remove this right. They replaced it instead with a meaningless stipulation that school employers may discuss any topic they choose with any group of school employees they choose to talk with. Then again, they may not. With the current bylaw proposed in tonight's agenda, the school board has an opportunity to reverse this action of the state and to reassert the principle that teacher voices matter as represented by their duly elected union. This bylaw does not give special powers to the union. Nobody has a veto or special right to dissent, but the bylaw will ensure continuation of the right we teachers have enjoyed in Indiana for a half century to have our voices heard on issues that affect us and the children we are dedicated to teaching. Our MCA Board of Directors and our building level representatives across the district have unanimously voted to support the bylaw as written and proposed this evening. And we are thankful that the school board is considering this important step in reaffirming the principle of union representation and collective discussion. On the other hand, we know there have been proposals to amend the bylaw by changing the words shall and must to may and removing the requirement that certain topics must be subject to discussion before implementation of an action occurs. We do not agree to these amendments. Our view is that any such change of shall or must to may and any amendment that eliminates discussion before implementation will render the bylaw optional and therefore meaningless. Any such change would be worse than no action at all, as it would align the MCCSC board bylaws with the anti-union actions of the state legislature. Our MCEA representatives and board of directors have unanimously voted that if such amendments are passed, we recommend that the MCCSC board vote no on the amended bylaw. As members of the union, we believe that our voice is our strength. We are thankful that the board is considering this measure to value teachers' voices and to restore the principle of collective discussion to our community. Thank you.
The board voted on amendment to Bylaw 135 to meet and confer for school employees exclusive representatives and discussion rights. Board President April Hennessy said this was a difficult decision to make, but that she will vote yes on the amendment to support the teachers' union.
I guess I'll say something since I was originally going to propose those amendments. It's interesting because, you know, as a former teacher and member of the MCEA, it's a strange position to be in to sort of have to sit in the seat between what our legal counsel is telling us and, you know, what the union has put in front of us. And I said to my wife, you know, as I've been mulling this over, like, I kind of don't know what to do. I'm in this position of, do I sort of prioritize the seat that I'm in and the board and the sort of protection of the district in a particular kind of way do I prioritize the MCEA and this policy? And it's been a really interesting moment, like in some ways, like one of the more difficult decisions I've had to make because of that conflict inside myself. And I think, you know, we've seen that there are these moments when rules are sort of meant to be broken because they don't serve people in a variety of ways, right? But I also think that there's a moment when rules or laws or policies get broken as a result of sort of faulty practice and those things do harm, right? And I do think that SB 486 is one of those moments. I think that it has done harm to our union and to the strength of union voice. And I think that for myself, you know, I understand the objections of our legal counsel to this because it limits the board's broad authority and it puts us potentially at risk in particular situations. And I also think that, you know, putting this bylaw on the books, it does sort of bring us back to a point that we were at before that law was struck down. And so in my mind, I think that we are knitting this back up and putting something back in its rightful place. And in that way, sort of mitigating or ameliorating the harm that has been done. And I think that if this district is working as it should, I think if any district is working as it should, and that the people are, all of us are sort of in our respective roles with care and intention and trust toward one another, then we should never be in the position where we might have to make certain kinds of decisions that would supersede those particular procedures. So I think as an extension of my trust in our teachers and in support of the MCEA and the value of their voices to me, I will be voting yes on this tonight.
Board member Erin Cooperman touched on the policy that prohibits teachers from speaking directly to the board.
Again, as I said last month, one of my concerns is that the overlap between policy 3112 and this bylaw creates a carve-out for, we created a policy that prohibits teachers from speaking to us, and then the bylaw creates a carve-out for one representative or possible multiple representatives from the union to speak directly to us. And I feel like one of my concerns is that gives too much power to a small number of people. If we were to change our own policy, 3112, to allow more direct communication with the board, then that wouldn't be putting so much power in the hands of a small number of people. It would give more teachers the opportunity to speak to us instead of a small handful.
Board member Kathy Fuentes-Rohr added that the policy is to ensure that the board gives the teachers the opportunity to democratically come to a decision rather than hearing from a handful of teachers.
I think that it comes across when you read it on its face level as like some kind of dictatorship where you don't get to talk to teachers and teachers are afraid to talk to you. But then as you learn more about the role and about how things work, the process of them having a democratic process to bring teachers to us, who we make the policy that greatly affects their working conditions, the kids' learning conditions. You know, if we got rid of it and I said, I get to pick which 10 teachers I want to listen to about the working conditions and their learning conditions becomes problematic, or who we hear from my 5 closest friends and so forth. So I think that the way that it's a massive system, it's clunky, but the way that this is set up is to preserve the teacher's voice through their representative. Because on those big issues, if we start to hear back in the background and we start to get up and we think that this is a reality, but there's a whole bunch of people over there, they have a process to bring that to us, and it can become very, and then it can leave out the superintendent whose job it is to run, and the administration to run the district. So that is, it looks, I think, when I first was on the board, it takes you aback, but I understand it to be this preserving of the teacher voice with their democratic process, so that in our process of decision making, we're not usurping that.
The board voted to amend Bylaw 135 with a vote of 5-1. Next, the board voted on the merger between Childs Elementary and Templeton Elementary Schools. Superintendent Jeff Oswald answered some questions that the board has had about the merger.
Question 1, and we will put this on our website on this board agenda item as soon as the meeting's over. So how will families with multiple children at the 2 different schools handle drop-off and pickup? More information will be available in the fall of 2024 when plans are finalized on grade span configurations, as well as the locations of any special programs. While greater efficiencies may be found, one example would be to perhaps follow the University Fairview model without a split currently between schools and have one of the schools start at a middle tier at 9:15. The time structure already exists in our system. Parents would not have to drop off students at the same time. They would elect to drop off and pick up at one school and then do so at do the same at the other school. The non-synchronous start time, for example, would make this feasible. All families would have the opportunity to utilize the transportation provided. Question 2. Can we account for families who might have transportation barriers or time issues and provide a school-to-school shuttle? That way, parents can have one drop-off or pick-up, or perhaps there is another method. Parents that have transportation barriers or time issues would be able to utilize MCCSE transportation for one or more of their children for either beginning or end-of-day routing. MCCSE also provides extended day opportunities for 2 hours at all of our elementary schools. School-to-school shuttles will likely exist as well, based on the likelihood of all buses dropping students off at one school and then driving directly to the second school.
To read the full list of questions and responses, Oswald noted that they will be posted on the MCCSC website. The board voted to approve the resolution to converge the 2 elementary schools, with board member Ross Grimes abstaining. At the Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting on April 23rd, Kevin and Clay Harden from Extreme Lawn Care and Outdoor Services approached the board about a bid they submitted, but that was returned to them when no one at the utilities building signed for the certified mail delivery.
We sent our bid in for the grass mowing. We sent a certified bid, and it was not signed for. So we feel like that bid should be pulled, and we should have a chance to bid on that. Okay. We got it right here where it was delivered to your office on
April 17th.
April 17th.
12:17 p.m.
12:17 p.m. It says notice, no authorized recipient available. And the first bid was pulled because of lack of information. So we feel like this bid should be pulled because we sent a certified bid in and we was lacking information on that also, because we sent out an email and a text message to Jose requesting information, and he finally replied to us on Wednesday. The bids were due Friday,
the 19th.
The 19th, and he replied to us on the 17th via text message, and then we sent our bid in, certified letter, to make sure it would get here, and no one signed for it. So that bid should be pulled and it should be rebid.
Board President Megan Parmenter reiterated the issue and asked for clarification. Kevin Harden responded.
Just to make sure I understand, you've submitted a bid, it was sent to the CBU via certified mail, and it arrived on Friday, but no one was here to sign for it, so it was not received.
Arrived on Wednesday.
Actually, because we sent it Monday, the 15th, I believe.
Okay.
Because we were waiting on information and nobody would get back to us with the information because what the properties you had listed did not match what you were bidding. So there was a big discrepancy there.
Okay.
So we didn't know for sure what to bid and we was waiting on information. Well, we decided to go ahead and send our bid in, and then now you didn't receive it. And the first bid, the original bid, was pulled because of lack of information, so this bid should be pulled for lack of information, and nobody here signed for our bid.
Okay.
Later in the meeting, Councilmember Jim Sherman asked what the next steps would be. City Attorney Chris Wheeler outlined how they will move forward.
I have to talk to the Controller's Office. Julie Martindale and I were working in tandem with our purchasing department with regards to this bid process. And I'd like to talk with her. I'd also like to talk with some of the other attorneys in my office to discuss this method by which they attempted to provide their bid to CBU. I also want to talk to some of the CBU folks and see, what what happens when somebody sends us a certified mailing? Where does it go and who's supposed to look at it and sign for it? I don't know those processes. So when I said that I need to look into this, I meant it. I really don't have an answer for what they did and what that might mean for this overall bid process that we tried to undertake.
Okay.
I want to make sure that it was fair for everybody. This would be, if we have to go back to the drawing board, it will be for the second time that we go back to the drawing board, and would then be the third time that we receive bids.
The next Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting will be held on May 6th. On April 22nd, the Ellettsville Town Council met and discussed additional appropriations for the 2024 town budget. These included additions for rural transit, telephone and fax, email, computer services, and fleet insurance. The council approved the appropriations for rural transit, telephone and fax, computer services, and fleet insurance. The board rejected the appropriations for email with the intent to discuss it later in the year. Board member Dan Swafford added that he thought that they should implement changes for the next budget year.
I feel just do it as we're doing it now and then fix this for next year. Budget season coming up, we can get everything aligned and then everything will be corrected next year.
Okay.
But just continue as we're doing it now and stay at it.
While the appropriation was originally tabled, there was some confusion, to which Town Treasurer Noel Conyers responded.
Yeah, to make it cleaner, I would prefer that the council vote no on this particular one, and then I'll represent it as a transfer later on in the year.
The appropriation was then rejected by the council. The council also approved the hire of a new employee for the Laborer 1 position and voted to purchase a new vehicle for the Department of Public Works. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.